The meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It is Monday, November 1st, 2021, and time is 5:15 p.m. Joanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Engel,
Here.
Commissioner Rollins,
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Here.
and Commissioner Ray.
Thank you, Joanne. Commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda? No hands are going up. It's now time for public requests. If you'd step up to the podium and state your name and address and turn the mic on, please, Tom.
All right. Good afternoon. Tom Thayer, 4821 North Dixie Highway in Boca Raton, Florida. And let me just mention, I thought maybe Michael would be here this morning. Just mention real quick, like before your next meeting, we will have Veterans Day. November 11th, it's Thursday, it's a city holiday, and it is completely different this year than anything the city has done in the past. So it'll be at the Meisner Park Amphitheater, 11 o'clock in the morning, and free lunch for veterans or in uniform or with an ID card, and $5 for everybody else that's may not be a veteran. So that's 11 o'clock through the lunch hour. Then 1 o'clock, there's a concert. So it's going to be a wonderful day, I think, in perhaps a better venue than what we've seen before at the cemetery or at DeHornley Park. So what I'm really here for, of course, is tomorrow. Tomorrow, the Federation of Boca Raton Homeowners Association has our regular monthly meeting. It starts at 8:30 sharp. The building opens up at 8 a.m. and that's in the, I'm not sure, it should be back in the Silver Palm Room, but it may be in the Royal Palm Room. In any event, it's in the community center downtown. So come by. We have two wonderful speakers. First one is Gary Richardson. He is the chairman of the Boca Raton Housing Authority, and I haven't been involved at all in talking to him, so I'm not sure what he's going to address. But the other one is one we all know, and that's Leanne Welch, manager of Gumbo Limbo. And I tried to talk her into bringing in a big turtle and letting them wander around the room for us, but she wouldn't have any of that. So we're going to be without the turtle, but she'll either be talking about programs, turtles, or what you guys would be interested in, facilities. So come by tomorrow, 8 o'clock, 8:30 the program starts, and we'll have some fun tomorrow. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. You're good. Melissa, do we have anybody on the phone? Okay. All righty. At this time, public requests are now closed. It's time to approve the minutes of the October 18th board meeting, and Brianne has a statement to make.
Commissioners, there's two changes that we need to make to these minutes for approval tonight. On page 2 of your agenda packets, on number 2, the first paragraph, about 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down, the very last line says John A. Rutherford. That's just a Scribner's error. We're going to change that to James A. Rutherford Community Center. And then on page 3, the substitute motion was made. The very last word in this statement says lease, and that'll be changed to agreement. So with those two changes, we're seeking approval of these minutes tonight.
And is there any other comment to this change? Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve these minutes? Thank you, Mr. Engel. And a second, please. Second. Thank you, Mr. Ernst. No more discussion? Okay. Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang? Commissioner Ray? Motion passes.
Hey, our first item of business is the Boca Tica maintenance recommendation found on page 6 of your agenda packet. Brianne, would you like to lead us off on that, please?
Commissioners, on page 6 is a recommendation to for the new landscaping maintenance program that we will need it at the Boca Tica community once we finish all this construction and renovations that are going on over there. So tonight we're looking for approval tonight to award the contract to 2 different companies. South Florida Bush Hog will continue with the full course in the corners that they've been doing. And then Yellowstone Landscape, we'd like to, South Florida Bush Hog would be $220,850. We're increasing the contract for the number of cuts, and also just because we've had to have them add on additional cuts as we've seen from the previous contract. And then that total is $220,850, and then a second award to Yellowstone Landscape. They will do the main entrance, keep up with the tunnel and the roadways, and things are more visible. That's $35,088.26. So we're looking for motions to approve these tonight.
Commissioners, I did check with Melissa about the scope of this Florida bush hog, because I thought that that was a lot considering, what they have been doing, but she did say that they increased their mowing from 12 times to 20 times a year, trimming the trees 2 times a year, which they had not been doing at all, and picking up dead limbs and different things like that 6 times a year, and then weeding around the southwest fences 4 times a year. So it is a much greater scope than just doing the mowing. Do you have any other comments or any questions for Melissa and Brianne? Mr. Engel?
Assuming the property lies fallow until we get a reduction.
That's correct.
So the total cost is 500.
Over 2 years, yes, yes. And there is a 30-day out clause in the contracts for us to get out of it. Should we decide to start building, we can make those changes and act accordingly.
In that 30 days, if we reduce, do they need the 30 days also to reduce the scope?
We would have to change that with them, yes.
All right. Mr. Ernst?
Yeah, just for clarification. So how much are we cutting? Just for clarification, the 11, basically you said 20 cuts. And so that'll run us about $11,000 a cut. Okay, and then today we're spending about how much per cut on those?
It's excuse me, it doesn't come out to exactly that, because you can't just divide it by 20, because there's a lot of other items they're doing. I think their price per a cut was $4,500 before. It did go up substantially, but they were still the lowest, as you can see in the bid materials for their per cuts on that.
I mean, it is more than double than what we're
Yes.
currently spending. So the scope of work increased significantly. So I guess I want to try to challenge on the scope of work. What was the scope of work before and the scope of work now? And is that what we really want to do at this stage when we're kind of in an interim stage?
Have to do more than what we're doing now, because we're getting, it's to keep it up with code. It's because when we originally went out for this company, it was to cut the grass because we thought we would be building a golf course. So we're not going to be building anything in the next year. And to be a better part of that community, we have to have it looking better. We're going to take down the construction fencing and put down grass on those corners. So that's going to be that's additional grass that's going to have to be cut, and it's got to be maintained, because those are right from the roadways that you can see. The front entrances has been cleaned up. So it is more, it's a broader scope, but it's also needed because for a long time, we've just let it go and let the construction fencing sit there, and it's an eyesore. And I think it's needed to make it feel better. Like people can actually walk out on the grass and have a picnic is what we hope, even though it's not an open park, but at least they'll be able to have, if their grandkids are out, they want to go kick a ball around, they're going to be able to do that now. So it's definitely a change.
I hope you're assuming that the Boca Tica residents no longer will dump sofas out there. Now you're going to open it up a bit more, and we're kind of in a, okay, you want to spend more money on it, that's fine. But we have to be very, cost conscious of what we're doing. Please don't, we have to be, I think, a little bit more disciplined on what we're spending our money on, because it's a very interim step. And so if there's something that needs to be repaired for code, obviously we need to do it. But when you open it up and have all the split fence rail fencing in and everything, it's not a park yet. And so there's a whole bunch of construction that will be coming I hope within the next year, but we all know this just takes longer than it should take. So, okay,
For comparison, we budgeted 99,000 for Ocean Strand, for the city to maintain Ocean Strand. And that's it's 14 acres. It's not 212 acres. So 100,000 to maintain Ocean Strand. We know they're not cutting down invasives out there or doing any of that work. So in the scope of things, this, to have that property looking better and maintained at a higher level, if you could do comparisons to that kind of, it does look a lot more cost effective.
Could just add one thing, I'm sorry, also that as for I think Mr. Rollins brought up is there's a 30-day out, but there's also a discussion that we had with these, and it was written in there that at any time, if we develop a certain part of the land, then that can be pulled out of this contract. And then if it goes back in, it can be renegotiated with them based on the new condition of that area.
Right?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I'm in support of this. Obviously, it's the lowest bid for full course and corners that we see there. And to make it looking better for the community there and for the people that drive by every single day. And I think it's worth it, even if it's just for a year. And in comparison to the numbers that we have at Ocean Strand, I think it'll be worthwhile to maintain it in a much nicer way than it is now. So.
Commissioner Rollins, did you have something to
Yeah,
say?
I second Aaron Wright's motion.
Was that a motion, Commissioner Wright? Okay, thank you. And seconded by Commissioner Rollins. Is
Yes.
there any further discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And Commissioner Ray. Motion passes.
And the second item is the RFQ Architect Engineer ranking. Brianne, would you lead us off? This is on page 8 of your agenda packet, please.
Sure, it's on page 8 of your agenda packets. We received, as you all know, we received 5 proposals. This is for the continuing contract for architect engineering services for the district. So this would be an opportunity to keep an architect engineer under contract for projects that we have ongoing. Should we need lights installed somewhere that would require an engineering drawings and things like that, we would be able to call on this firm to do that. We also have an opportunity, if you guys rank the top 3, we can negotiate with the top 2 firms and use them intermittently as we need for different projects. And that's another opportunity because we have so many projects coming up. So the 5 firms that proposed: Calvin Giordano and Associates, Miller Legg, Crane Atlantis, Walters Zachariah and Associates, and Chenmore and Associates. We listed the selection criteria, and then tonight we'll just look for direction as far as if you want to rank an interview, rank tonight, how you'd like to proceed.
Here's what's your pleasure. Would you like to rank and then bring the top 3 in for interviews, and then we can go ahead and discuss contract award?
Yeah, as I was looking through all the proposals, I don't really, for me personally, because we don't have a specific project in mind for these proposers, from my personal opinion, I rank them the top 3. I was able to kind of take one out, Crane Atlantis, because they had really no park experience at all. And I also took out, I mean, I love Miller Legg, but I took them out because I feel like there could have been some conflicts, with having them on board with the master plan and possibly other projects. So I just eliminated them and didn't want them having too much stuff on their plate as well, for us as well, with other projects that they have going on. So then I ranked the top 3, but I would prefer just to rank them, take the top 2 that we can come up with. I don't feel like, because we don't have a project, we don't necessarily need to have them come in for interviews, because really there's no specific questions to ask them.
Brianne did bring up that there are some projects that will be coming up, though, in the very near future with
I
different
still
parks.
feel like it's a waste of everybody's time. I feel like we can rank them. They're all very experienced. And I feel like we could just rank them and go from there.
Mr. Engel?
I have several concerns. I kind of feel the same way as Commissioner Wright. But going through these RFQs, I kind of got the impression that these applicants expect a lot more than is going to be available. These aren't going to be major projects. These aren't going to be the infill field at Patch Reef. They're going to be more like, I would say more like the batting cages that we put in a sugar sand. And I kind of ranked them with that in mind. And I also feel that we really only need two. To me, there are only two really that are qualified. I agree that we really have to put Miller Leg, we have to disqualify them. And I felt that there were two others. One I thought was way too big and had a subcontractor that was based out in California, which I thought was, you know, how much use is he going to be or she going to be to us? That one, Crane Atlantis, again, they have no experience in our particular type of work. So I agree. We could just as easily go with the top two. And we don't really need to have them come in, do interviews, because while we do have projects coming up, there are a variety of projects. So, you know, starting to spend time asking questions on specifics of those projects and how they would handle them. They're really, the projects aren't that unusual or that unique. So that's my 2 cents.
Mr. Ernst.
Sorry.
I agree with what Aaron said, the top, I kind of like the idea of interviewing them to decide which ones you are, who you're going to work with. I think it's important because the project manager is the person who's going to be assigned to you and you better get along with them. So yes, you could rule out 2 of them. For the same reasons on Miller Leg, they got a big project ahead of them. So let's stay focused on that. Crane Atlantis, I agree, that kind of knocked them out. And then it left you with these 3. The only question I would be interested in is from Brianne is what are those small projects that you're looking at? And if one of those is Ocean Strand for a kind of a long-term plan, is this one of these firms the ones you'd want to work with? And if that's the case, then I would take more consideration to Miller Lake. But
Don't have direction right now for any future for Ocean Strand, just getting through the first part of the phase 1. But the projects that we do have that were in the budget and things that we've talked about a lot are the pickleball courts at Patch Reef, which is a higher project. Also, there's renovations of the courts here and new lighting put in. So that will require some engineering. And also a discussion about a second field house and where that fits and what happens to James A. Rutherford Community Center. Those are all things that we would probably seek some input on from there.
Should we let Mr. Rollins have his say in it? Brianne.
Just one more comment though, like Commissioner Ernst said, this is a 5-year continuing contract. So in 5 years, do I see a future at Ocean Strand? Most likely, yes. And the same at all of like this there's a lot of things that are coming at us in the next 5 years. So.
Mr. Rollins.
Well, I'm in agreement with the majority of you guys feeling the same way. I think any of these architect firms are very qualified. Some are more specific to what we're looking for than others. And, I'm like Craig in the sense that, Miller Leg made my number 3 choice because I thought the other 2 were just not what we were looking for. The question I've got, Brianne, is how are these? First of all, I don't know that we need 2 of these folks to retain them. And if we're retaining them, do we have a retention fee that we're going to have to pay well, then if we're not, I really am prepared to rank and without having to interview him, because my top choice is when we've already had work that we've done with, which was Calvin Giordano, and my second place team was Walter Zacharia. And the only question I had about them is, I mean, they're a massive firm, but they use Kimley Horn a lot, and I didn't know what that relationship was. But they do the kind of work that we're looking for. And I know that we've used Calvin Giordano for Patch Reef, but they did such a good job and stayed on task. I was looking at the timeline that when we started that project and we finished that project and we came in on time. I just like the firm, but if the board wants to interview them, I would support that as well. But I think we can do that without the interview.
Commissioner Wright, why don't you, Mr. Goran, would you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick note of reference for you. You're currently reviewing matters under the state statute known as the CCNA, the Consultants Competitive Negotiations Act, which is, as you know, founded in Chapter 287 of the Florida statutes. And the statute does require that when you make your decision, which you can do one of several things. You can interview all five, you can or you can rank them this evening without interviews, but the statute does require that you rank at least three. The statute specifically requires no fewer than three firms regarding their qualification, approach to the project, and ability to furnish the required services, which would then mean you would negotiate with the top firm ranked, but you can legally make a decision this evening, absent an actual interview, based on your review of the background of the applicants and the proposers, to rank them this evening. But I would urge you to consider ranking three because the statute would require it.
Thank you, Mr. Goran. Commissioner Wright, would you like to start us off with your top three, please?
So I ranked them based on the selection criteria that we had in front of us, and I had CGA as number 1, and I had Walter Zacharia as number 2, and I had Chen Moore as number 3.
You?
Because you all won't have the same top three is the thing. We'll leave it as your three that you've ranked. I'm sorry. We'll go ahead with this and we'll get it.
Mr. Engel?
So would you please repeat Aaron's three? I didn't get those.
I had Walter Zacharia 1 and Giordano 2, but in my mind, they're just about equal for different reasons. So if the board wanted Giordano first and Zacharia second, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I ranked Miller Lake 3rd, though I do also have misgivings about the fact that they're doing so much of our work. Chen Moore, I thought was just way too big for us. And, given the size and scope of these upcoming projects, maybe with the possible exception of a field house, they wouldn't give us the attention that would be needed. And Crane Atlantis, as I said, they're just not in the same ballpark as we are.
So Mr. Ernst?
A decision on the fly. So number 1 is Miller Lake. We've already interviewed them. We know who they are, and they were resoundingly good. And we don't know where we're going with Boca Tica. I think they're a big firm. They can take care of it. And if Ocean Strand is somewhere in the horizon. I would welcome them as being a partner on it. Number 2 is kind of a toss-up between Calvin Giordano and Associates. I agree with Bob. They delivered on Patch Reef. So I like to respect someone who's done work with us before. And number 3 is Walter Zachariah.
I have Calvin Giordano as number 1, Walter Zachariah as number 2, and I had Miller Leg as number 3 primarily because they were tops over the other 2 remaining that I felt. And I had the same reservations that everybody did about whether Miller Leg can manage that, but I think they're certainly quite capable if they were selected as one of the top 2 finishers. But it's CGA, Walter Zachariah, and Miller Leg are my top 3.
All right, I had CGA as my number 1, Walter Zachariah as number 2, and Miller Leg as number 3 for pretty much the same reasons. I was concerned about the size of Chanmore, even though they've had a lot of experience with this type of thing in other cities in the area. So Brianne, do you want to go ahead and tally up?
One firm would be CGA, number 2 is Walter Zachariah and Associates, and number 3 is Miller Lake. Chenmore was number 4 and Crane Atlantis was number 5.
Right. So your instructions now will be to negotiate with the top 2. Commissioners, would you prefer just 1, or do you want to have Brianne negotiate with 2? Commissioner?
I mean, I think if there's no retainer fee, that way we have an option. In terms of when the project comes up, we can look at both firms and say, okay, we'll use this one over this one because of these reasons or whatever. So at least it gives us the option.
Could I get that in the form of a motion?
To retain the top 2 that were chosen in the rankings.
And do I hear a second? Thank you. Is there, Mr. Engel, did you want to say something?
No, just that I agree.
That's right. Mr. Ernst, you good? And Mr. Rollins, you're good? Me too. Okay, so Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Ernst? Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins? Commissioner Vogelsang? And Commissioner Ring? Motion passes.
One of the easiest rankings we've ever had. Thank you, commissioners. Item number 3 is the Boca Tica CSR change order number 5 for the fence. Brianne, that's on page 10 of your agenda packet, commissioners.
Commissioners, on page 10 of your agenda packet is the change order number 5. We hope this is the last one. As we were going through the permitting process, Jeffrey Street dead ends between the east side, and then there's a strip of land as though you would imagine a street going through there. That strip of land is actually owned by the city, and it breaks up those 2 parcels on the east side. They'd like us to, instead of doing split rail, they'd like us to put that gate in there. The cost of that is $8,730. We did get, the city did say that they were comfortable with the gate that we chose in this process. So we're looking for approval tonight of a change order in the amount of $8,730, which will finish off that site over there with fencing.
Thank you, Brianne. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Brianne about what this is all about? Any questions? Do I hear a motion to approve? And a second, please? Any other discussion?
On that side, that's city's responsibility to take care of it, or is our responsibility? Okay,
And is that we maintain that property, all of it, including the city-owned portions.
on the side, I think they should have some kind of stop signs or something on it. but I don't know if I assume they're going to do that. I don't know.
Also, Regina can strap herself to it if they decide to extend Jeffrey Street. She promised. Okay, no further discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Engel? Yes. Commissioner Rollins? Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright? Motion passes.
Just have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Unrelated to this motion, but dealing with the planned roadway that may go, did that get abandoned to the city, that right away? The property that goes, with the extension of Jeffrey Street or Clintmore through that eastern part of the property, has that been abandoned to the city? Was that on the survey that we had? Okay, I'm just wondering when that was abandoned to them. We've been talking about the concern about that road going through for eons. So, okay.
It's time to approve the payroll and invoices on page 15. Mr. Ernst, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion for approval of payroll and invoices in the amount of $2,725,451.58. Make sure I got that correct. Yeah, 251.58.
Do I hear a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Any questions? Mr. Rollins?
We're finally getting there. We have May and June. And Brian, would you just for the record, let us know what your conversations are in the city as far as bringing those up to date since we are in our new fiscal year? Thanks.
Get your microphone for mine to work here. I did talk with finance. We have, as you guys may remember, we have about 60 days, we have 60 days from the end of our fiscal year to do any budget amendments. And those would require us obviously to have all of our invoices to know if we need to amend our budget. I did reminded the city staff, the finance department, that we had only 60 days to do that. That gives us one meeting between now and then to get the budget amendments approved by you all, which is November 15th. So they have already sent July, which we started to review. They have assured that we will get the August and September invoices by November 5th, which will give us time to review it and get it on the agenda for approval. And if there's any amendments, we could have those at the next meeting if necessary. But the finance department has said that they will get them to us by Friday.
Any other discussion or questions? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wright? Motion passes.
Okay, reports and discussion items. We'll start off with Executive Director Harms.
There's one piece of news, and I'm glad Ms. Eklund is here tonight. I already talked to her before the meeting. I said, it's a good thing you're here tonight because I need to talk to you about this. At the end of this week, the construction fencing at Boca Tica is going to start coming down, which means the property is going to be more accessible to ATVs and those kinds of things. So we're going to send an email out and we'll get that out to all the HOAs to let them know that this is happening. The construction fencing has to come down so that we can start taking out those old parking lots and some of the concrete and debris that was left from the previous demolition before they can put down the sod and the grass and put in the split rail fence would be the final phase of that. So while the property is more accessible, obviously we want to let all the Boca Tica residents know what to do if they see somebody on an ATV and how they can handle that. So we're going to send an email out, and Ms. Eklund has said that she'll help us make sure we get it out to all the HOAs out there too. And we want to stay on schedule. The weather's looking great, so hopefully that does, and we'll keep moving through it as fast as possible till we get that fencing put out there to limit what happens out there. But hopefully with some good communication, we can all work together to get through that. Ocean Strand update, we confirmed with city staff. They're not waiting on anything else from us. We are just waiting to get put on the planning and zoning and then city council's agendas. We're hoping that I'm hearing maybe by the end of January, we would be through that process and have the right steps to go forward there and finish out that project. The other item I had was to talk about the invoices, which we said we would get by the end of this week on Friday. And then future agenda items, the construction easement for Ocean Strand that we talked about a couple of meetings ago, we'll have that ready to go at the next meeting to take a look at. And then we previously had a shared use agreement with St. Mark's Church, which is next to Patch Reef. That agreement expired. So we're working on a brand new agreement with the church. We may have that at the next agenda, next meeting as well. That's all I have.
Jagoran, District Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners, good evening. Actually, Brianne that stole my fire. The only item I have to report tonight is the TCE, the temporary construction easement. We have a document that we believe is in appropriate form to take back to the board for your review and consideration at the next meeting. To the extent that there are certain insurance obligations, we do want to pass that back to Commissioner Rollins. I'm not sure you've actually seen that yet, but we would ask for your views of the insurance coverages. We actually looked at some other governmental venues to verify the relative numbers on the protections, but we'd like your insight, given the board's direction, to ask your analysis, so to speak. We have begun conversations with the attorney for the grantee. The document is pretty much in final form, and we hope to finalize whatever calculations, as it were, financially. The objective is that the district would become completely whole, that you don't have to pay for whatever legal fees we have charged. We've segregated our fees to make sure we can capture them and recapture them back to the organization, make sure they're not paid separately or in supplement to current billing, so to speak, as well as the issues of all cost and expense being borne by the grantee. That was the direction of the board, with a certain other host of conditions and requirements, which we intend to bring back to you for your review and consideration, including hours of operation, paying the fees and costs, and all the things that we were considering, the construction costs, the repaving costs, attorney's fees, survey fees, et cetera. I mean, the objective is that this organization is providing an opportunity by giving this easement, which is temporary. It's a temporary construction easement, and you should not have to come out of pocket or shouldn't suffer any losses in connection with that offering. I've seen what it looks like from an aerial. I understand why they would like your assistance, because the cost and expense of doing it differently would be, I believe, much more costly. And this will include a contribution of some sort, yet to be refined as to dollars and cents, but it's something which is certainly has been in the conversational side of how to get to the next level with you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's all I have tonight. Thank you,
Okay.
Brianne, for setting me up on this one. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Wright? Engel?
Yeah, I have a question for our council
Yes, sir.
regarding this easement. Am I correct in assuming this also relieves us of any possible liability should anything occur on that property while they're using it?
I may respond, Madam Chair. There's some very express insurance requirements that are in the document, which will be certificated to this organization, to the district specifically. I don't remember what the coverages are, but I know we did some homework on a couple of our municipal venues, and I think it's $1 million and up, if not mistaken. It's not unreasonable, it's not irrational, but it is certainly protective. And the objective was, God forbid something were to happen there, we would not, for failing for the avoidable, would want to not cover that issue. And as I remember, one of the last meetings I went to, the conversation was that there's one of your members has certain expertise to at least look at the issue. Not that he can give you a formal certification of an answer, but his insight would be very useful in this discussion.
Thank you. The other things, first, I'd like to thank Mr. Thayer for his service. Much appreciated. I'm assuming that you served in the United States Armed Forces?
I don't have, so you got
Oh,
all messed up.
you served in the U.S. Armed Forces? In the Army, Navy, Air Force?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So thank you for your service.
Well, thanks.
Okay, not a problem.
I thought you were talking about something serious.
I don't know, you know, putting your life on the line for the country, to me, is kind of serious. Also, it was brought to my attention, somebody, and this is really kind of like out of our bailiwick, but someone went to the city website to make a tax payment because they got their tax bill, and the website was down. And it affects us only in that the city collects our revenue for us. So have you heard anything about this?
The taxes have to go to the tax collector in Palm Beach County. It's not the city that collects it. But I have not, They may have been down doing maintenance or something, but I have not heard anything else about it. They do not.
Anyway, that's it. Made enough of a fool of myself.
Mr. Ernst. Let's,
Question, I don't know whether we concluded the investigation and the number of complaints that we had about the the chair concession on the beach, Brianne.
He has said that there's no issue. I went out there, of course, it was a rainy day and I didn't see anything, but I haven't seen any other complaints come in other than what was sent to me. And then you had some personal complaints come into you too, but I haven't seen anything since then.
Yeah, I understand the revenue production, but the public has complained that these people take the prime spots, and then what space is left between them, is very minimal, and it's pretty. And so I just was wondering what the value that was being added by having the chairs there, what the revenue is being generated. It's not coming to us.
Of that back each year. So I will get that number to you for the next
Yeah,
meeting.
and
Sorry.
And I don't know what was driving this. I keep beach chairs in the trunk of my car for more often for soccer than for going to the beach. But I know most people do, and there's some regular folks that go there that don't want to pay the concessionaire for. I mean, maybe if you were out of town, but these people are not paying taxes and they're paying an entrance fee to the park. But I just question whether or not there's significant value to having the waterfront area lined with chairs where you have to rent in order to enjoy an afternoon at the beach. That's all.
I'll get the revenue. We get 33% of the sales from that company there at the beaches. Commissioner Ernst has something.
Yeah, well, I'd like to know when that contract comes up so that I could speak to it or have members of the public speak to it who are complaining about it. Because, I'm not a regular beachgoer, but those that are feel put out with the chairs being the way they are. And that's all I have to say.
do you have something else?
To the beach, and since you're discussing it, is I was approached about the dog park, and I will be the first one to say I was the most skeptical person about the dog park. But I will also say the dog park is overwhelmingly popular within Boca, and it's got very limited hours. And so if you do go there, you find a lot of people with dogs all scrunched in with those limited hours. And I'd like to ask if you could, and I don't know if we get any revenue for that, but I would like, no, you can't do that yet. So I would like to ask if you could ask the city to explore expanding the dog park hours at the dog beach. Yes. Yeah. What? Mhm. Not the space, it's the hours. Yeah. Mhm. Obviously, yeah. Mhm. Sundays. So you know it better than I do. I just, it's an observation that I think the hours. Yeah.
I would like to know why evidence of vaccination is not required for the animals, for people who get a permit to get either on the dog park or the dog beach. Because it's everybody I know who's gone and gotten a permit has said that they did not require evidence of vaccination.
That question, I know Boca is one of the few dog parks that actually requires a permit even to go. But I'll find out if they've considered that or why that's not part of the consideration. I will talk to Michael. We don't oversee Spanish River, which is where the dog beach is. That was my question was, is it the dog beach or the dog park? But we don't provide any funding for it or anything like that. So I will make the suggestion and just say that it came up in our meeting and see if they have any insight into those hours. And I'll find out if there was ever a review of that and why they're not asking for those vaccines. Previously, it was just based on residency that you'd get the pass, but to view. I'll follow up and find out.
I only had one question for Brianne. I keep nagging and it's not Brianne. I just think that we should be getting regular communication about participation in the different parks, like the ranger reports that we used to get. I'd like to see that come back, the safety reports and things like that. I'd like to know what's going on in our parks and how things are standing up, especially, during COVID, and how things, the numbers have added up. I would say that we have a lot more people in our parks than pre-COVID times. And it just would make me happy.
I will bring that up when I talk to Michael this week. And one of the things that Commissioner Ernst has actually brought up is putting in counters at some of our parks and stuff too. So I'll bring that into the conversation and see if that's something that would be helpful.
Brianne, would you reiterate our future agenda items, please?
Sure. The two things I have are the construction easement for Ocean Strand and then our St. Mark's shared use parking agreement, which will be a new agreement, not a renewal.
Carousel RFP.
That that was actually on my list of things is we're going to do an assessment of the carousel before we put the RFP out by a company who's going to help us craft that RFP to know what we need to do. That's within our budget guidelines. So I hadn't brought that up, but we'll get the RFP out. When we do, we'll have 30 days in that window of time to get those back to you guys. So that's not on a timeline yet, but we're working on it.
Commissioners, do you have anything else you'd like to add to a future agenda? Mr. Rollins?
Just one more question that when you brought that up about the activities report is, are all of our facilities open now on regular hours like Sugar Sand Community Center?
They are on regular hours. Last I heard, the theater has not been booked yet, but I know there's interest and I just suggested that person go through the process of booking and I haven't heard back otherwise, but all of our facilities are open except of course James A. Rutherford closed and they're now here. And so this facility will be open later as you'll see. But yes, everything's back up and running.
Go, you have a job.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Ernst? Commissioner Engel? Commissioner Rollins? Commissioner Vogelsang? And Commissioner Ray?